The massive screens in Earth's Space Control Center lit up with an unexpected message. The Galactic Council, in all their advanced glory, had just announced the first-ever interstellar racing championship. The room full of human space officials fell silent as they read the details. "Well, this is new," said Director Wilson, scratching his gray beard. "They've invited Earth to participate." Quiet laughter echoed through the council chamber of the galactic headquarters. The alien representatives, with their sleek suits and advanced technology, found it amusing that humans would even be considered for such an event. "You actually sent an invitation to Earth?" asked one of the tall, blue-skinned council members. "Their ships still use fusion drives. They haven't even mastered quantum technology." In a small spaceport bar on Mars Colony, Captain Jack Thompson watched the announcement on a dusty screen while nursing his coffee. His weathered face showed more interest than most. Next to him sat Mike, his chief engineer, who was already drawing diagrams on a napkin. "Jack, are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Mike asked, his eyes bright with excitement. "That the U.S. Thunder might have a chance." Jack smiled, looking through the bar's dome window at their ship. The Thunder wasn't pretty. Its hull showed signs of countless repairs, and its design was 50 years old, but they had modified every inch of that ship over the years. The Thunder started life as a simple cargo hauler, but Jack and his crew had turned it into something special. They'd added custom engines, reinforced the hull with new alloys, and installed manual override systems that most modern ships had long abandoned. That evening, Jack called a meeting in the Thunder's main room. His small crew gathered around the old metal table, Mike with his toolbox, Lisa at her navigation screens, and Tom surrounded by his computer displays. "They're calling it the race of the century," Jack explained, bringing up the course details. "Ships from 15 different species, the most advanced vessels in the galaxy. And we're going to enter this rust bucket?" Tom asked, but his grin showed he was already on board. "This rust bucket has outrun 3 pirate ships and survived an ion storm," Lisa reminded them, "while those fancy quantum ships needed rescue." The next week, when Jack submitted their entry form, the Galactic Racing Committee thought it was a joke. The committee head, a thin alien with silver skin, actually called to verify. "Captain Thompson," the alien said, its translator making its voice sound metallic. "You understand this race will include vessels with quantum drives, ships that can bend space itself." "I understand," Jack replied calmly. "The Thunder meets all the basic safety requirements. You can't deny our entry." The news spread quickly through the galaxy. Most alien news channels treated it as a funny story. The primitive humans entering their outdated ship in the greatest race ever organized. Betting stations gave them 1,000-to-1 odds of even finishing the race. But Jack and his crew didn't care. They spent the next month preparing the Thunder, working day and night. Mike improved the engine efficiency by 15%. Lisa programmed new navigation shortcuts. Tom installed backup systems for their backup systems. On launch day, the Thunder looked even more out of place than usual. It sat at the starting station, surrounded by ships that looked like they came from the future. Sleek vessels with quantum drives hummed quietly, while the Thunder's fusion engines rumbled like a sleeping giant. "Look at that ancient human ship," one alien captain said over the open channel, probably forgetting humans could hear. "They still use manual controls." Jack looked at his crew and smiled. They all knew something the others didn't. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Sometimes being outdated meant being reliable. And sometimes the simplest solution was the right one. "All ships, prepare for race initialization." The announcement boomed through space. Jack gripped his manual controls, feeling the familiar vibration of the Thunder's engines. "Ready?" he asked his crew. They all nodded. They might not have the newest technology, but they had something better: human ingenuity, years of experience, and a ship that had never let them down. The greatest race in galactic history was about to begin, and the humans were ready to show the galaxy what their outdated ship could do. 2 days before the race, The Thunder's crew gathered in the ship's engine room. The space was hot and cramped, filled with the smell of engine oil and metal. Mike lay under a large pipe, his hands covered in grease as he made final adjustments. "Pass me the wrench, Tom," Mike called out. His voice echoed against the metal walls. As the ship's engineer, Mike had spent more time in this room than in his own bed. Every pipe, every wire, and every bolt had been touched by his careful hands over the years. Tom handed him the wrench while checking readings on his tablet. As the systems specialist, Tom had a gift for seeing patterns that others missed. His screen showed engine temperatures, power levels, and hundreds of other measurements that told him the Thunder's health. "The other ships are laughing at our engine room," Tom said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "They say their quantum drives don't need maintenance, just pressing buttons in clean rooms." Mike rolled out from under the pipe, his face showing a proud smile. "That's exactly why we'll beat them. They don't know their own ships. We know every sound the Thunder makes, every shake, every rumble has a meaning." Up in the control room, Lisa sat at her station, running navigation drills. Her fingers danced over the manual controls with amazing speed. Before joining the Thunder, she had been a street racer back on Earth. She had learned to trust her instincts more than computers. "Captain," she called to Jack, who was checking the main systems, "I found something interesting about the race course." Jack walked over, looking at her screen. The race course map showed dangerous areas that most ships would avoid. But Lisa had found paths through them, paths that needed perfect timing and skilled piloting. "See these gaps?" she pointed. "The alien ships will go around them. Their computers will say it's too dangerous. But I can thread us through there. It's just like the old racing tracks back home, just in 3 dimensions." Jack nodded, trusting her judgment. He had picked his crew not for their fancy degrees, but for their real-world skills. Each one of them had something special that computers couldn't copy. Later that evening, the crew sat in the ship's small dining area, sharing their last meal before the race. The food was simple, heated packets of space rations, but the mood was cheerful. "Tell me again about the modifications," Jack said, looking at his crew. "I want to know every advantage we have." Mike put down his fork, his eyes lighting up. "The main engine. I've added old Russian submarine parts to the cooling system. They're built to last forever. The secondary engine has parts from a 20-year-old Mars rover. That thing survived dust storms that killed newer machines." Tom joined in, pointing to his tablet. "I've installed 3 different backup computers. When the fancy quantum ships hit trouble, they fail completely. But we can switch to older, simpler systems in seconds." Lisa smiled, adding her part. "And the manual controls. I've modified them to feel more like my old racing car. More direct feedback. You can feel the ship better." Jack looked at his crew with pride. Other ships had impressive alien technology, but the Thunder had something better. A crew that understood their ship completely. Each person knew their job perfectly, and together they worked like a well-oiled machine. Through the dining room window, they could see other race ships arriving at the starting area. The alien vessels looked beautiful, all shiny metal and glowing energy fields. Next to them, the Thunder looked like it belonged in a museum. But appearances could be deceiving. Under the Thunder's worn exterior were thousands of clever modifications. Every outdated part had been chosen for a reason. Every primitive system had proven itself in real space. "They think we're crazy for entering this race," Jack said, standing up. "They think humans are too primitive to compete. But tomorrow, we'll show them something they've forgotten. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." His crew nodded, confidence in their eyes. Tomorrow, they would prove that human ingenuity could beat alien technology. Tomorrow, they would show the galaxy that being outdated didn't mean being inferior. The Thunder might not be the newest ship in the race, but it had the best crew. And in space, that's what really mattered. Race day arrived with a spectacular display of lights and energy as 15 of the galaxy's most advanced ships gathered at the starting line. The space around them buzzed with excitement as news drones captured every moment for billions of viewers across the stars. The thunder floated among them like an old truck in a showcase of sports cars. Next to them, a ship from the star empire of Centauri glowed with blue quantum energy. On their other side, a vessel made entirely of crystal and light hummed with power. "Attention all racers," the race controller's voice boomed through space. "Please attend the final briefing." Jack and his crew took their small shuttle to the meeting station. As they entered the briefing room, conversation stopped. Alien captains and their crews stared at the humans with a mixture of amusement and curiosity. The race controller, a tall being made of shifting silver smoke, floated to the center of the room. "The course," it announced, "will test your ships and crews to their limits." A hologram appeared, showing the race route. First, they would navigate through the Crusher asteroid field, where massive rocks collided constantly. Then through the Red Storm Nebula, famous for destroying ships with its energy pulses. Finally, they would face the gravity wells of 3 dying stars before reaching the finish line. "This is madness," whispered one alien captain, their tentacles waving nervously. "Half these obstacles can tear apart even our best ships." Jack watched Lisa's eyes light up as she studied the course. He knew that look. She was already planning their route, seeing paths others would miss. "One final note," the controller added, looking directly at the human crew. "We've received several complaints about allowing lesser advanced ships to participate. Let me be clear, any ship that meets safety requirements can race, even if some think they don't belong." Back on the Thunder, the crew made their final preparations. Through the windows, they could see the other ships testing their advanced systems. One ship created its own wormhole for a quick systems check. Another turned completely invisible for a few seconds. "Their ships can bend space," Tom said, checking their comparatively simple systems. "All we can do is fly through it." "That's all we need to do," Jack replied confidently. "Mike, how's our engine?" Mike's voice came through the intercom, mixed with the comfortable rumble of the fusion drive. "Purring like a kitten, Captain. She's ready to show these fancy ships what real engineering looks like." The race countdown began. On the main screen, they could see the betting odds. The Thunder was still listed as the ultimate underdog, 1,000 to 1 odds of winning. Lisa's hands rested on the manual controls, her fingers light but ready. Tom sat surrounded by his screens, watching every system. In the engine room, Mike stood ready beside his beloved engines. Jack took his captain's chair, feeling the familiar leather under his hands. "All ships, prepare for race start," the controller announced. "Course is locked. Safety fields are active. Race begins in 10 seconds. The other ships activated their quantum drives, their hulls glowing with impossible energies. The Thunder's fusion engine rumbled louder. Its sound somehow more real, more solid than the high-pitched hum of alien technology. 5 seconds. "Remember," Jack said to his crew, "we don't need to be the most advanced. We just need to be the smartest." 4. Lisa's fingers tightened on the controls. 3. Tom's screen showed all systems green. 2. Mike patted the engine housing gently. 1. The Thunder's crew shared one final look of determination. Race start. The space around them exploded into action. Quantum ships vanished and reappeared ahead. Energy vessels stretched into beams of light. The crystal ship turned into pure energy. But the Thunder moved too, its fusion engines roaring to life with the sound of controlled power. They might not be able to bend space, but they knew how to fly through it better than anyone. The greatest race in galactic history had begun, and humanity's outdated ship was ready to prove that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The Crusher asteroid field loomed ahead like a deadly maze. Massive rocks, some as big as moons, crashed into each other with explosive force. The race's first challenge had begun, and it was already claiming victims. 2 quantum ships down. Tom called out, watching his screens. Their computers couldn't calculate the asteroid paths fast enough. Lisa's hands moved smoothly over the controls as she guided the Thunder through the chaos. Unlike the alien ships that relied on computers to plot perfect courses, she watched the asteroids' movement like a dance, feeling the rhythm of their collisions. "Big one coming up," she warned, pulling the ship into a tight turn. A huge asteroid passed so close they could see its cratered surface through the windows. The crew held their breath, but Lisa's timing was perfect. Jack watched his navigation officer work with pride. While other ships made mathematical calculations, Lisa used her racing instincts. She didn't just see where the asteroids were, she saw where they would be. "More ships dropping out," Tom reported. "Their fancy sensors can't handle the dust from the collisions. Too much interference." Mike's voice came through the intercom, mixed with the steady roar of the engines. "How's my girl holding up?" "She's got plenty more to give if you need it. Your modifications are working perfectly, Mike," Jack replied. "The hull reinforcement is handling the impacts like a champion." Ahead of them, the crystal ship that had looked so impressive at the start was having trouble. Its energy shields flickered as small rocks peppered its surface. The crew watched as it finally turned back, its beautiful form too delicate for the brutal reality of the asteroid field. "Half the ships are already out," Tom said, checking his displays. "They're not used to dealing with real space. Their computers can't adapt fast enough to." "Hold on," Lisa shouted, cutting him off. The Thunder dove sharply as two asteroids collided above them. Chunks of rock bounced off their hull, but Mike's reinforcements held strong. Through the chaos, they could see some of the remaining ships. The Centauri quantum vessel was skipping through space, disappearing and reappearing to avoid collisions. Another ship had wrapped itself in some kind of time field, moving through gaps just before they closed. But their advanced technology had a weakness. It needed time to recharge. The Thunder, with its primitive fusion drive, kept moving steadily forward while others had to pause between jumps. "Lisa," Jack said calmly, "I see a path through that dense section ahead. Think you can handle it?" Lisa grinned, her hands already adjusting the controls. "That gap's barely wider than our ship. The other crews won't even try it. Their computers will say it's impossible." She paused, studying the movement of the rocks. "But I can do it." The Thunder turned toward a section of the asteroid field that looked completely impassable. Massive rocks tumbled and spun, leaving only the smallest gaps between them. "All hands brace," Jack ordered. "Mike, we'll need full power." The ship's engines roared louder as Lisa began her run. The Thunder twisted and turned like a leaf in the wind, but every movement was perfectly controlled. Where other ships would have relied on quantum physics or energy fields, the Thunder relied on human skill and nerve. They threaded through gaps that seemed impossibly small. They skimmed past surfaces of spinning asteroids close enough to see individual craters. Every moment could have meant destruction, but Lisa's instincts never failed them. When they emerged from the dense pack, Tom checked their position and let out a whoop of joy. "Captain, we're in the top 5. We've passed most of the surviving ships." The news spread quickly through the race channels. The primitive human vessel, using nothing but fusion power and manual controls, had mastered the asteroid field better than most advanced ships. "Well done, everyone," Jack said proudly. "But this is just the first challenge. The Red Storm Nebula is ahead, and it's going to test us in ways the aliens can't imagine." The Thunder flew on, leaving the asteroid field behind. They had proven that human skill could match alien technology, but the hardest parts of the race were still to come, and the remaining ships would be the toughest to beat. The Red Storm Nebula filled their view screens like an angry red ocean in space. Lightning like energy bolts, each one powerful enough to fry a ship's systems, flashed through the crimson clouds. This was where the race would really test them. "Status report," Jack ordered as they approached the nebula's edge. "Only 7 ships left in the race," Tom reported from his station. "The Centauri quantum ship is leading, followed by the energy form vessel. We're holding steady in fourth place. The first ships entered the nebula, their advanced shields glowing as they pushed through the energy storms. The Thunder's crew watched carefully, learning from what happened next. Suddenly, the race channel burst with panic. "My quantum drive is failing," one alien captain cried. "The nebula's energy is disrupting our calculations." Jack leaned forward in his chair. "And there it is. Tom, what's happening to their systems?" Tom studied his screens intently. "The nebula's energy is too chaotic for their computers to handle. Their quantum technology needs precise calculations, but the storm keeps changing the numbers." "Mike," Jack called through the intercom, "is our backup plan ready?" In the engine room, Mike stood proudly next to a strange addition to their systems. Next to the modern equipment sat what looked like old-fashioned circuit breakers and mechanical switches. "Ready, Captain," Mike replied. "I've got the analog systems online, just like we planned." The Thunder entered the nebula just as another advanced ship ahead of them started spinning out of control, its computers overwhelmed by the storm's energy. "Switching to backup systems now," Tom announced. One by one, he turned off their modern sensors and activated the analog equipment Mike had installed. Old-style radar and radio took over from quantum sensors. Mechanical switches replaced digital controls. The ship shuddered as the first energy wave hit them. But while other ships' systems crashed, the Thunder's old technology backups kept working. They weren't pretty, but they were immune to the nebula's chaos. "Lisa," Jack said, "take us in. Remember, we're flying almost blind compared to our usual sensors, just like those old sea captains in the storms back on Earth." Lisa nodded, her hands steady on the controls. She watched the simple radar screen, its basic display showing just what they needed to see. Sometimes less information was better than too much. Through the red clouds, they could see the other ships struggling. The beautiful energy-form vessel flickered like a dying light, its entire structure disrupted by the nebula. The mighty Centauri quantum ship kept trying to jump through space, but each attempt left it more damaged than before. "Their advanced technology is useless here," Tom said, watching the disaster unfold. "They've forgotten how to fly without their computers." The Thunder pushed deeper into the storm. Every bolt of energy that hit them made the lights flicker, but Mike's analog circuits kept them running. The old-fashioned backup systems, considered primitive by the other races, were exactly what they needed. "Two more ships dropping out," Tom reported. "Their systems are completely fried. We're up to second place." The crew felt a surge of pride. Their outdated technology was proving to be their greatest strength. While the advanced ships fell apart around them, the Thunder flew steady and true through the heart of the storm. "Captain," Lisa called out excitedly, "I can see the nebula's exit point. The Centauri ship is the only one ahead of us, but they're barely moving." The Centauri vessel limped ahead of them, its quantum drive sparking and failing. As the Thunder passed them, they could hear the alien captain's shocked voice over the radio. How is this possible? They're using technology centuries behind ours." "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways," Jack replied calmly, "especially when you need something that just works." The Thunder burst out of the nebula into clear space, now leading the race. Behind them, only two ships managed to follow, their advanced systems badly damaged. "Well done, everyone," Jack said proudly. "But don't celebrate yet. We've got one challenge left, the gravity wells, and you can bet the remaining ships will try anything to catch us now." The Thunder flew on, its fusion engines humming steadily. They had just proved that human ingenuity could overcome alien technology. But the hardest part of the race still lay ahead, where three dying stars waited to test them one final time. Three dying stars loomed ahead of the Thunder, their massive gravity wells creating a deadly maze of invisible forces. Each star was turning into a black hole, and their combined pull could tear any ship apart. "Status update," Jack called out, his voice tense but steady. "Two ships still behind us," Tom reported. The Centauri vessel got their quantum drive working again, and that energy ship somehow survived. They're both gaining on us. The thunder shook as it entered the gravity field. Through the windows, they could see space itself bending around them. Light twisted in strange ways, making navigation by sight almost impossible. "Lisa, what are you seeing?" Jack asked, noticing his navigator staring intently at her screens. "Something interesting, Captain," Lisa replied, her fingers moving across her controls. "The gravity waves. They're not random. There's a pattern, like currents in an ocean." Tom quickly turned to his own screens. "She's right. The 3 stars are creating a repeating pattern of gravity waves. But the cycle is so complex, it would take a quantum computer hours to calculate it." Behind them, the Centauri ship attempted to use its quantum drive to skip through the gravity fields. But the massive forces threw it off course, sending it spinning dangerously close to one of the dying stars. The energy vessel tried a different approach, transforming itself into pure light to slip through the gravity wells. But even light bent in this place, and the ship had to turn solid again to avoid being pulled apart. "Mike," Jack called through the intercom, "we're going to need everything you've got. These gravity forces are stronger than we expected." In the engine room, Mike worked frantically at his controls. "The engine's giving all she can, Captain. But I've got an idea. Remember those old NASA slingshot calculations I stored in the backup computer?" Jack's eyes lit up. "Tom, pull up those old Earth gravity assist calculations. Lisa, could you use those to plot a course?" Lisa smiled, her hands already moving. Old Earth space missions used gravity to gain speed. If these gravity wells are like currents, we can ride them instead of fighting them. While the advanced ships behind them tried to power through the gravity fields with brute force, the Thunder's crew prepared for a more elegant solution. They would use the star's own power to pull them through. "Course plotted," Lisa announced. "But Captain, it's going to take us very close to all 3 stars. One wrong move and we'll be pulled in." "The timing has to be perfect," Tom added. "We'll only get one chance at this." Jack looked at his crew, seeing the determination in their eyes. "We've come too far to play it safe now. Lisa, take us in. Mike, be ready with those engines. Tom, watch those gravity readings carefully." The Thunder turned toward what looked like certain death, a course that would take them through the strongest part of each star's gravity well. The alien ships behind them watched in disbelief. "Those humans have lost their minds," they heard over the radio. "No ship can survive that close to 3 dying stars." But the Thunder's crew knew exactly what they were doing. As they approached the first star, Lisa timed their approach perfectly. The ship swung around the massive body, using its gravity to gain incredible speed. "First slingshot complete," Tom shouted as they shot away from the star, speed increasing. They repeated the maneuver around the second star, the ship groaning under the enormous forces. Mike's reinforcements held steady as they whipped around the dying sun, gaining even more speed. "Final approach," Lisa called out, her hands dancing across the controls. The Thunder curved around the third star in a perfect arc, using the combined gravity of all 3 stars to fling them forward like a cosmic slingshot. The alien ships watched in amazement as the primitive human vessel suddenly shot ahead at impossible speeds, riding the gravity waves like a surfer on a giant wave. "Now that," Jack said with a proud smile, "is how humans have explored space since the beginning. Not with fancy quantum drives, but with science, skill, and a little bit of crazy courage." The finish line was now in sight, but their victory wasn't certain yet. The alien ships were still behind them, and they would try everything possible to catch up in these final moments. The finish line glowed ahead like a bright ribbon across space. The Thunder shot forward at incredible speed, riding the momentum from their gravity slingshot maneuver. But the race wasn't over yet. 2 ships still following. Tom called out, checking his rear sensors. "They're pushing their engines beyond safety limits." The Centauri quantum ship flickered in and out of space, desperately trying to catch up. The energy vessel had transformed into pure light, streaming toward them like a laser beam. "Their engines can't take that kind of strain," Mike warned through the intercom. "They're going to tear themselves apart." As if confirming his words, the Centauri ship's quantum drive exploded in a flash of blue light. The ship dropped out of the race, its crew escaping in emergency pods. "One down," Jack said grimly. "But that energy ship is still gaining on us." Lisa's hands were steady on the controls as she pushed the Thunder to its limits. The ship's hull creaked under the strain, but Mike's modifications held strong. "Captain," Tom shouted suddenly, "the energy ship is doing something strange. They're trying to create a wormhole to the finish line." Through their rear windows, they saw space beginning to bend and twist as the alien ship attempted its desperate move. If it worked, they would lose their lead in an instant. "Mike," Jack called out, "remember that crazy idea you had about using our fusion exhaust as a shield?" "It's never been tested, Captain," Mike replied. "But it might just work." "Do it," Jack ordered. "Lisa, be ready. When I give the word, cut all power to engines." The crew held their breath as the energy ship's wormhole began to form. At that exact moment, Jack gave the signal. "Now." Lisa cut the engines. Mike diverted all their fusion exhaust behind them, creating a cloud of energized particles. The Thunder's momentum kept them moving forward as the energy ship's wormhole collapsed, disrupted by the fusion particles. "Their systems are overloading," Tom reported excitedly. "They can't maintain their energy form." The alien ship flickered and solidified, falling behind as its advanced systems failed one by one. The Thunder's simple but effective trick had worked perfectly. "Engines back online," Mike called out triumphantly. "Final sprint to the finish line." The Thunder's fusion drive roared back to life. The finish line grew larger in their view, a gleaming gate of light that marked the end of the most incredible race in galactic history. "All ships, all monitoring stations," Tom read from the race channel, his voice filled with awe. "The human vessel Thunder is about to cross the finish line." Lisa guided them through the final distance with the same skill she had shown throughout the race. The Thunder crossed the finish line at full speed, its outdated engines singing a victory song. The race channel exploded with shocked comments and cheers. The impossible had happened. A human ship, using technology centuries behind its competitors, had won the greatest race in the galaxy. As they slowed to a stop, Jack stood up from his captain's chair. "Well done, everyone. We just showed the galaxy what humans can do." The victory ceremony was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The race officials, still stunned by the result, presented the Thunder's crew with the championship trophy. Billions of beings across the galaxy watched as the human crew stood proudly on the winner's platform. "How did you do it?" one of the race officials asked. "Your ship is so primitive compared to the others." Jack smiled, looking at his crew. "That's where everyone was wrong. Our technology isn't primitive. It's proven. We didn't rely on fancy new systems that could fail. We used what we knew would work, what humans have been using to explore space for generations." "But the gravity slingshot," another official began, "was invented by humans centuries ago," Lisa finished. "Sometimes the old solutions are the best solutions." As they stood there, their trophy gleaming under the lights, the Thunder's crew had done more than just win a race. They had shown the galaxy that human ingenuity, determination, and the wisdom to trust in proven methods could beat any advanced technology. The next day, as news spread across the stars, applications from alien ships wanting to learn primitive human space techniques flooded Earth's space academies. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the best way forward is to remember what worked in the past. The Thunder and its crew had changed the galaxy's view of humanity forever. They had proven that being outdated didn't mean being inferior. Sometimes it meant being exactly right.